I just wanted to do a little supplemental video for some of you because I've already had a question about cutting out the squares from fat quarters, and it's a little bit different from my previous video where I was showing you how to cut strips, and then from those strips you cut out all of these sections. But for the half square triangle squares, this week we're just cutting solid squares. Next week they will be sewn together in pairs and then sliced up to make our half square triangles. So this week we're just cutting out solid squares. So here's how this works. Up here it tells you fabric A requires 5 finished bolts. That means you're using 2 half square triangles in each lightning bolt. So that means you need a total of 10 half square triangles. So to break that down, that means you could use 2 of these will make 8 because they're 4 at a time squares. And then 1 of these will make 2. So 4 plus 4 plus 2 is 10. So I would need to cut out 2 of these from my pink fabric and 1 of these squares from my pink fabric. And depending whether I'm using the small size quilt, I would be cutting these. The larger one, I would cut these sizes. So the first thing I'm going to do is just circle. These are the sizes I'm working with. Okay. And if you're more comfortable, if you only want to do 2 at a time squares, 2 at a time half square triangles, then you just cut out more of these. You'd cut out 5 of these to make 10 half square triangles. But instead, to make it a little more quick, we're going to cut out 2 of these, 1 of those. That's it. Okay. Now, I don't have any pink fabric. Let's pretend this is pink. This is blue, but let's pretend it's pink, okay? So from this, I'm cutting 2 10 1/4 by 10 1/4 squares, and I will cut 1 7-inch square. And that will be enough to make 10 half square triangles next week from this fabric. So the first thing you want to do is go along your longer side. Your fat quarters, if you're cutting from fat quarters, there's usually a longer side, which is 21 to 22 inches, and then the shorter side, which is 18 inches. So you want to use the maximum longest side to cut out those larger squares, which are 10 1/4 inches. So I could cut them 1 at a time, or I could fold it over and cut out 2 at once. If I'm cutting out 2 at once, I want to fold this. I want to avoid using any of this, right? That's the selvage. It's rough. You don't want to use that. Let me just make sure that there's enough here. I've got a nice big ruler. It goes all the way to 10 1/4. So I could line the 10 1/4 up along the folded edge. 10 1/4 along here. It's a rough, it's not perfect, so I will be trimming up a little bit more. But I would slice like this, and then slice that section in half, and then I'll have 2 10 1/4 inch squares. Does that make sense? Okay. Like this. And then these next week, you will see we're pairing these up with all the squares from the background fabrics that you cut out. Oh my goodness. Okay, there. So right now this is still a rectangle, but I'll cut out 10 1/4, 10 1/4 along here. It's not perfect. It was angled at the bottom, so I just want to trim it up a little bit more. Just get that tiny bit off. Okay, there's 1 10 1/4. Here's the other one. This should, yeah, that one's good. Okay, and then, so those 2 will be paired up with 2 background fabric squares that also measure 10 1/4 inches. And then those will be cut up into and made into 4 half square triangles each. So technically, there's enough to make 8 half square triangles next week. And now we need 2 more because we're making 10 half square triangles out of this color. And the last one we're cutting is 7 inches by 7 inches, because according to my instructions, 7 inch by 7 inch will make 2 at a time HSTs. I know these are called 2 at a time and 4 at a time squares. What I mean is this square makes a 4 at a time half square triangle, and this one makes a 2 at a time half square triangle. I'm not saying cut out 2 squares. I'm just saying this is what results, okay? So 1 7 by 7 square. So first I'm just gonna make that out of the way, put this down here, 7 by 7. All right, and then that's it. Then you've got all your pieces cut for that particular color. Okay, so there are 3 pieces, and that will total 10 half square triangles next week when we pair them up with the background fabric, same size squares. If you're going scrappy, just follow how many bolts are you making with one fabric. So if you're making 2 bolts with one fabric, that means you need 4 half square triangles. So you could cut either one of these, and that will make 4 half square triangles, or you could cut 2 of those, and that will make 4 half square triangles. There's a bit of math involved. We'll go over it in the live session, and I will be sure to record it this week, okay? If there are any other questions about cutting out these, let me know in the comments. That's it. Happy cutting.